Many men struggle to find their place in social settings. They often worry about offending those around them, especially their significant others, by somehow coming up short of expectations. I see this masculine uncertainty as a sign of the times, and I've felt it deeply. I'm Chris Wallace, and this is the Defender News. Bear with me, I want to talk to you about dancing. You see, many years ago as a young man, I used to go to bars at the height of the disco and funk dance craze of the 1970s. The women sometimes wore baby doll dresses and matching underwear, and clubs had speaker systems that towered above the dance floors. The problem was that I danced like a white boy. I imagine you know what that means. You'll know it meant I thought I looked awkward and lacked rhythm. I had no particular style of my own, and I had never learned to emulate the dancing scene on TV. So I'd stand at the bar and watch people dance and talk to those around me. The women would step off the floor between songs to breathlessly sip on their drinks and then head back out to the dance floor to dance some more. I'd get asked to dance regularly, but I was too cool for that. Truth was, I was confused. Instead, I was left there to sip on my Chivas or beer and try my best to not look like I secretly wished I could be out there with them. To me, it was all just too damn silly looking, and the learning curve too great. It required a level of drunkenness that I was not prepared to reach. So I sat there, or stood there, watching, waiting for the opportunity to socialize while trying my best to look like I was enjoying myself. Truth is, I hated it, but I went out of peer pressure and the need to be around people. It's what people did back then. Friday night was club night. Later, when I was married, I was out with her and her best pal at an almost empty club on a weeknight, and her friend taught me a simple waltz box step. It was so kind of her, and I found it really helpful. Problem was that nobody waltzed like this anymore. So I never used what I learned in the decades ahead, but I can still remember that box step to this day. Later, with my marriage waning, I found myself in a different city, running big sales teams for the newspaper industry. I built teams of people who were loyal to me, and I was loyal to them. And I had a Latina manager who had helped me open an account, and one weekend she wanted me to try out Spanish food, and she suggested a bunch of us go out for dinner at Don Quixote's in Calgary. The food was good, and we all enjoyed our meals. But what I wasn't ready for was that after the supper hour, the staff cleared away the tables in front of the little stage. A man came on the microphone to address the crowd, inviting people to learn the basics of salsa. Turns out most of the supper guests at the restaurant knew this was going to happen. And after the newcomers were taught the basics, every table emptied as people headed to the dance floor in front of the little stage to take up Latin dance. Now, I don't know if my Latina manager at the time knew this in advance, but knowing women as I do now, looking back, it wouldn't surprise me if she did. I sat at my table in wonderment at it all, while my Latina manager explained how this kind of dance was normal where she came from in Mexico. Soon a fella who was there came up to our table and asked her to dance, and she accepted. From my seat, I marveled at the patterned moves he used and how she followed him without any difficulty. I saw how much fun she was having, and it struck me that he didn't look bad at all. And I saw that it was because it wasn't about him. It was about her. At one point, he turned her and caught her with his foot on her leg, and then he sent her back going the other way, and then he repeated the move on the other side. She fell right into lockstep and never missed a beat. I still had a few staff around me at the table, both male and female, and so I wasn't alone, and we continued to enjoy the spectacle of all these people dancing. And back in those days, my staff and I were pretty devoted to each other. So one of our key female reps happened to go into the ladies' room, and when she came back to the table, she said she met a gal in there who was a dance instructor. Now, she was a few decades younger than me, but forthrightly, my rep put a card in front of me and said, "Wally, you're going to call her and learn to dance." It wasn't that she was being bossy, though she was. It was that she was nudging me in a way that women can when they sense a deficit that needs to be filled. She was inviting me to lead. So I did. I called Mona, the teacher, and I started lessons. I was so bad that at that first lesson, she stopped trying to teach me anything after about 10 minutes. What she did instead, she put on Bill Withers' Lovely Day on repeat, and she just had me shuffle up and down the makeshift dance floor in the living room of her downtown apartment. She was supremely patient, and she met me where I was at, as a disco-traumatized ex-gangster non-dancer who had never learned anything beyond the box step one time. That's all I did for the next hour. After 2 or 3 lessons, she suggested I bring a dance partner. Another one of my staff, from the gals whom my female VP at the time used to call Wally's wenches, volunteered, and I was off. Over the next year or two, I learned salsa, merengue, bachata, and so forth. I later went to Cuba with Mona to learn from the top teachers in Havana. Eventually, under La Monita's tutelage, I could slide on the floor on my knees while holding my dance partner's hands and then jump up and start to turn my date to the music. What made it possible was realizing that it was not about me. Rather, it was about turning my girl on the floor so that it made her look her best. After all, she's got the curves and the smile and the pretty dress and the legs. It wasn't about me at all. It was putting order to chaos. It was about living is giving. And the more I made my partner look good, the better I felt about it. The lesson became a metaphor for an approach to life. I might forget most of the moves from back then, but the idea of serving those around me is intact. And in my perfectly imperfect way, I've been doing it ever since. So I ask you, how can you apply this to your own life? How can you reverse the flow? Let me give you a postscript example. Years later, when I moved cities and I joined Toastmasters International about public speaking, I didn't know anyone at my first meeting. Feeling a little self-conscious, I looked for how I could reverse the flow. I didn't want to focus on energy coming in. Rather, I wanted to focus on energy going out. So I helped put away the chairs and tables when it was over. Then, for a time, I started showing up a little bit early, and I left a few minutes after everyone else in the weeks ahead so I could help out. It connected me to the organizers, though I wasn't trying to impress anyone. In a tiny way, I was helping to make the meeting better. I was reversing the flow. It wasn't about me. As far as I'm concerned, that's where freedom lies. It's not about walking into a room and wondering how you're being received. It's about walking into a room and asking what you can bring to it. That's where a good deal of confidence comes from. Not from being seen, but from being useful. Stay powerful, true and free. You'll be interested to know I created a short course called Trigger Reset that shows you how to identify emotional reactions that run automatically and update them so they stop controlling your behavior. It's not endless therapy. It's a practical system you can apply immediately. If you want it, the link's in the description. Now back to our regular programming.